live on Substack. There'll probably only be a handful of people actually joining us for this, which is cool. Because this is going to my paid subscribers only. So if you're here during the course of this recording, feel free to leave a comment and ask Bobby or I any questions. There's Ryan. Good to see you, Ryan. So yeah, this is a bit different today because we had a few technical issues and now we're recording on our phones. But we made it work, Bobby. We made it work.
Yeah.
Yeah, good to have you here.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Bobby, yeah. Okay, let's just dive into the podcast then. So, Bobby, tell us about yourself. So, anyone who's coming across you who maybe hasn't come across you before on Substack, introduce yourself. What do you do? What's your background?
Yeah, so my background's complicated, but basically I had four different careers: engineering, brand marketing, teaching, performing. And then I decided to become a motivational speaker about over 20 plus years ago. I've done 1,000 keynotes and workshops across four continents, mostly about soft skill leadership. Then I became known as a personal branding expert. Then I started talking about digital marketing influence because I built influence on Twitter with 500,000 followers. LinkedIn, I was a top voice, got 55,000 there, and essentially built that up. And then I've also done 5 TEDx talks over the years. And so now what I do is for my high level clients, I help them land TEDx talks to build their authority, their trust, their brand, and things like that for their business or their speaking. But I also help small business owners, get through the early days of their business because they struggle. And whether it's overwhelm or resources or things like that, still getting them clear on their brand, giving them the resources, the tools to help them elevate and get better at strategy, content, business development, marketing, sales, all that kind of stuff. And I still do lots of speaking, which is a lot of fun for me. But for the most part, that's the main thing I do. And Substack is primarily focused on business owners. I think that's kind of most of what my content is focused on this channel for. So that's a bit about me.
Nice, brilliant, awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about what it's like to do a TEDx talk and how you get into that kind of stuff and what the pathway looks like for that. But I want to ask you real quick about something you say in your Substack bio, first of all. So a line that really stood out to me was, I turn stories into strategy and vulnerability into a leadership superpower. Can you tell me what's the thinking behind that? Where did that come from?
Yeah. So the first part is storytelling, which I think is an important thing that every brand, every person, every individual wants to get better at. And this is something I kind of learned actually during the pandemic, and I started coaching people and CEOs and teams on this. And so it comes across in content, it comes across in presentations in the workplace, it comes across in speaking and all that kind of, and in TEDx talks as well. And so for me, storytelling was kind of the expertise that I was focused on for the last particularly the last 5 years, I would say. But more recently, in the last year or two, I would say, you know what? What about taking it to the vulnerable level? The vulnerable aspect is, most storytelling is either you tell stories of other people or other things, or you tell maybe some personal stories, but how vulnerable are they? You could tell a story that's really funny, but maybe it's not very vulnerable. But I'm saying if you can go vulnerable and go deep and really authentic, it builds greater trust, greater authority, and actually creates greater impact for whatever you're trying to do, whether you're trying to motivate your team or whether you're trying to cut through the clutter on social media, or you're trying to make your TEDx talk go viral. So I think they both go hand in hand. The storytelling piece is a communication method that is memorable, but then the vulnerable piece, which is where it really deepens that trust and that connection, and
Mm.
the combination I think is really powerful. So I'm really big on exploring that with people.
I love that. Yeah, I tell everyone I speak to tell stories and to tell vulnerable stories as much as they possibly can. How do you advise people, Bobby, when it comes to knowing what kind of vulnerable stories to share? So, what is like kind of the limit or the line people should go to? Should they just tell like everything about themselves, or um, explain what the process would look like for that for somebody?
Yeah, I mean, first it's good to understand what your objective is. Who you're targeting, what do you want, what do you want them to know? Where they live, how they feel, things like that. I think that's important. Number two, doing kind of a database build of all the stories of your life that are interesting. I do that. I do that with my tax clients. I do that with my branding clients too. A life story build is actually really good for you. And then when it comes to what is your level of ability to share stuff, that's different from person to person. I think the only thing that's important to understand is what is private versus what is personal.
Mm,
Right. So for example, when my kids were little, I would talk about them, in the school or talk about them growing up, but I never actually identified where their school was.
yeah.
Now that they're older, they're in high school, it's not that big a deal. Back when then, it was different. And similarly, let's say I'm going through a divorce. I would never. I saw someone post about how they were upset and then they started going after their wife, and I was like, that's private. Like you really
Yeah.
shouldn't do that. Personal was talking about the impact of the divorce, how it's making you feel, but throwing other people on the bus,
Mm,
not a good way to go. So you have to really determine what is personal versus what's private, and then every single person has to decide kind of what's their comfort level, and then what's their kind of expand beyond the comfort level, the growth level, because everyone's different. I do believe that everybody has the ability to share whatever they want and as deep and as vulnerable as they want, as long as they're willing to take responsibility for it. So I know one woman on LinkedIn, she talks about the suicide of her son. And
mm,
it's very, very dark. It's very, very vulnerable. But she's doing it because she's trying to bring awareness to the addiction issues that he had, and she wants everyone to know about it. So even though she does that almost every other day, I think that's fine because she's on a kind of a mission around that, and there's kind of a genuine intent behind it.
mm. That's so powerful. I mean, yeah, to share that kind of something that's so damaging to you and so personal, so vulnerable must be so difficult. And the fact he's able to do that is really powerful. And I've seen people on Substack sharing about things like what it's like to go through having cancer and to go through losing somebody and all that sort of stuff. And it's I think it takes a certain kind of person to be able to do that and be able to do that really effectively as well. I'm not sure that's something everybody can do.
I
On
think
that
it's a I
level.
I think it's a muscle. I think it's a muscle, right?
Yeah.
So it's something you build, right? So the more you do it, the better off you'll be. And I'll share two stories about this. So one is years ago when I was on the speaking circuit with a couple other fellow speakers, and some person talked about, had a really bad day, and they were demotivated and they felt like crap having done nothing that whole day. And I said that right away at the panel. I said, listen, we all have dark days. And I share an example where I got up and I ate a bunch of crap and I was watching TV all day, did nothing. I was like, wow, what is wrong with me? And I felt like an idiot. And the moment I said that, they were like, wow, I can't believe someone on stage is sharing their really bad days. And next thing you know, the other three guys are sharing their stuff too. And we had this amazing conversation. I was like, wow, this is fascinating. Then the second thing that happened was on LinkedIn, which is typically is a professional network. You don't share very many vulnerable things. But one of my friends had this thing, it was a hashtag campaign called Let's Get Honest. And he talked about his anxiety issues. And then he nominated me to share something. And I was like, "Oh, what do I talk about?" And then I decided to go full blown. I talked about my body image and my binge eating disorder. And I talked about how I feel out of control and how sometimes I look at my body and I hated it. And very, very, something I would never do on LinkedIn. I mean, Facebook, even maybe, but even not even then. But the response was tremendous,
Mm,
tremendous. And I
mm,
saw, like, okay, you know what? There is something here that can be shared. And I think the number one reason you want to do it is because there's always someone, maybe more than one person, that says, wow, I'm not alone anymore.
mm.
This person's going through the same thing. That is the best thing you can do for somebody.
Yeah, yeah, helping that one
So,
person.
the practice, the more you do it, the easier it gets. And so now I'm quite good at it. I have no problem sharing things around a broad range of things. There are some things that I again hold that are private that I don't
Mm,
talk about, but things personal to me, yeah, no, I have no problem talking about them now.
okay, that's fair, that's fair. Um, do you think it's easier sometimes to share these kind of stories online, even if we have a big audience and even on platforms like LinkedIn, than it is to share it with people we actually know in real life?
That's a good question. I don't know. There's a certain freedom to putting it out there, social media, and it's kind of in a manner it's somewhat anonymous because you're not speaking directly to one person. However, when I'm speaking to my close friends, I tell them a lot of things, including the things that are private, right?
Mm,
So with my friends, I'm telling private things, and I was also at an event that was a speaking event in person. It was a small room, maybe like 30 people there, and I shared things that were private that I wouldn't share publicly, right? So I think it depends on the context. I think it also depends on what you're comfortable with. I think in general, most of us are most comfortable with our family and our close friends,
mhm,
and then social media is less. I think the people who have a smaller social media network are less inclined to share vulnerably versus the larger ones because we're so used to sharing stuff already. So I think we kind of get used to it. I mean, there's some people who are very protective of their brand, and I understand that. But I personally believe that being vulnerable of your own personal journey and owning that is actually going to enhance your brand and it's going to enhance the trust. And therefore, it's actually better for you overall.
I totally agree. I 100% agree with that. Yeah. I just want to very quickly say, anyone who is joining us, just a reminder, if you just come in, feel free to ask Bobby Wright any questions if you want to. Just kind of throw them out there, and we'll come back to them as we chat. Bobby, I love this so far. This is brilliant. Let's kind of go back a little bit to your journey. So I wanted to ask about this long, varied journey that you've had, where you have gone from engineering to marketing to working in Second City, to keynote speaking and TEDx. Um,
Yeah.
what has that been like to make those changes? Is there anything that you've learned throughout that journey that you have now carried into what you're doing now at this point in life?
I would say there's probably two things. One is uh, understand your personal brand and what drives you as soon as possible. So, I'm telling my kids in high school, figure this out now because you don't want to have to switch things later on. And it evolves as you grow too. Like, so knowing my brand, knowing what I wanted, that's something I hadn't done. And so I think back then I wish I would have taken that. And I think the
Mm,
second thing that's really important is, don't wait until you're forced out, right? Take control of your life because in all those cases, I left engineering because I was fired, right?
mm,
And then I left it in brand marketing because I was let go, and I was like, what am I going to do? So I shouldn't have waited so long all those times because by the time it took me like 15 years to figure out what I really wanted to do, and once I did that, I never looked back. It's been amazing now, right? And it evolves as we go along, but I think get clear on your brand, what you're doing, and what makes sense to you, what fuels you, what your passions are, and then number two, don't wait like, if you are and for someone like who's miserable in a job, or let's say that you're miserable in starting your own business, even like 3 months in, don't wait and say, "Well, let me try it for 2 years." No, no, like, figure out what's going on, analyze, get feedback, talk to people, because if you can either pivot or exit or do something else, then you can and you should, because you don't wanna go through something and put all that money into something and investment, that time and energy, and it's not gonna work out for you. If you feel anything that's not fulfilling you, and fulfillment to me is the goal, then you need to like find either ways to be more fulfilled or find a way to pivot to something that's more fulfilling.
mm. Um, what would you say is like a major red flag for someone who's in any kind of role, that they maybe feel about the role that they're in that signals it's time to make that pivot?
Um,
Is it is
well,
it
I
just
mean,
is it just purely that you just go into work and you're like, I want to be here, or is it like a moment where you just decide to make the pivot?
I think it's like the day before. So let's say it's Sunday and you're like dreading the week.
Mm.
Right? Now, maybe you're having a bad week, but if this is happening over and over again, you should look at like what is going on here.
Mm,
The thing that happens for a lot of people is they create narratives in their mindset around the four areas of fulfillment. So I have this thing called the four areas of fulfillment. Right? There's the people in your life, there's the work that you do, there's the passion. Sorry, the passion project you have, and then there's the let's call it the spirituality, mental health, and things like that. So what
mm,
they'll do is they'll say, "Oh man, hate my job, but love my wife and kids."
mm,
Okay. Or they'll say, uh, love my job, but man, life at home just sucks.
mm.
Or worse, hate my job, hate my wife and kids, but thank goodness for rock climbing. That's my outlet.
Yeah.
And the truth is that you shouldn't settle.
Mm,
You should work to make all four of those areas of fulfillment better. They're not going to be perfect, but work on all of them. Try to make them better. Make work better. Make the people in your life better. Make your passion pursuits better. And so I think a lot of people they settle, or they resign themselves to it, and I just don't think they should.
mm. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, and let me pivot now a little bit
Yeah,
towards TED Talks. So you've done
yeah.
quite a few of those, and you help people get those opportunities for themselves as well, I believe. What would you say to somebody who really wants to do a TEDx talk someday? What's the first step they need to take on that journey?
Number one, to get over the mindset of who am I and do I deserve it and all that kind of stuff. Because the truth is, it's not about achievement or status or success. There are 10-year-olds who've done TEDx talks. There are 18-year-olds who've done 4 TEDx talks.
Mm,
So that's the first thing. Second thing then is, well, really the best way to get a TEDx talk is to come up with the right idea. Most people struggle with coming up with the right idea, topic, and title, which is kind of where I help them because they usually have pretty vague things. Like, I want to talk about the power of empathy, or I want to talk about the power of sales. Like, that's not really enough for a TEDx talk. Um, and then most people don't know how to pitch properly. how to actually send the right application. They write an application out and it's not the right way to fill it out. And then the third thing is they don't know where to find TEDx events. So,
Mm.
typically, how do you find events to pitch? They don't know the process, where to start, who to talk to. So I lay that all out for them. But ultimately, if you want to get a TEDx talk, coming up with the right story, topic, and title that is meaningful, that's the number one thing you need to do to land that TEDx talk.
Mm. What happens to your business or your brand after you've done a TEDx talk? What does that do for your level of authority and your social proof essentially?
Well, I always say that there's different ways to amplify your brand, your thought leadership, or your authority, right? So, and the truth is, um, you can do them all wrong. Like, for example, if you have tons of money, the easiest way to build your authority is to just do paid ads. Now,
Mm.
if you have lots of money, great, but you could also do ads poorly. The other ways, networking, building your database of people, right? But that's a slow, long game. But you could also do that poorly. You
Mhm.
could have a content strategy. That's also a longer game, but you could do that poorly. You could be a speaker trainer. You could also do that poorly. You could launch a book, but that could be poorly done. People launch books, people launch programs, people launch TEDx talks, but they don't leverage it. So what I say is that TEDx talk is the best tool because it amplifies the quickest because it is storytelling, it is speaking, it is content, it is relationship building, and it's like it 100x what everything else is like. So for what I tell people is like, look, are you willing to invest 30 to 50 hours of your time over a 3 to 9 month period to amplify your brand 10 to 100 times? That's what the TEDx is. Now you have to leverage it, just like a book or anything else. So you have to leverage that TEDx. So what I do is I say, look, TEDx is the vehicle. It's the primary vehicle to really elevate that authority and that trust. But you have to know how to leverage it properly, which means you have to take people on the journey. You have to show them what's going on. There's many people who launched a TEDx talk or launched a book and done nothing with it. And so I
Mhm.
think that's the other big thing they do, which is like, they land the TEDx talk, but they don't leverage the TEDx talk, or they don't come up with. Actually, there's three parts. You have to land the TEDx talk, then you have to actually craft a really awesome talk that has more virality, more engagement, more bite-sized things you can use later on, and then finally you have to leverage that talk for your brand and your authority.
Mm. Brilliant, brilliant. And can anyone reach out to you, Bobby, about this? So if someone's interested in TEDx, is it okay for them to approach you and can you put them on the right path?
Yeah, yeah, no problem. I mean, like I
Mm.
said, for the most part, I do three things. I do the TEDx coaching, I do the keynotes, and then I basically do help small business owners with my membership community to help them elevate. So those are three different levels of things I do. Most of my stuff on Substack is focused on the business owners, but yeah, if people want to talk TEDx talk, like it's all part of it. I mean, look, most business owners want to use a TEDx talk to elevate their brand because what happens is once you have that TEDx talk, and I have like one of my clients. He actually landed two TEDx talks in the span of a couple weeks, and now
Right.
what happens is, when he reaches out to people, they're more likely to respond. When he gets on a call with people, they're more likely to listen to him. When he tells them his quote or he goes to higher fee, they're more likely to say okay to it. And that's why, there's so many different reasons why the text talk as a branding tool is going to be so great for your business.
Brilliant, brilliant, awesome. Couple of quick comments here from people. So,
Sure.
Edgar said, "Yes, the key question. What do I want to be known for? What's my purpose?" Which I think you were speaking to, Bobby. Ryan said, "I love those four categories and don't settle." Ryan's definitely big on this kind of thing. I'm sure he's resonating with us super powerfully right now. Um, Going back to the small business owners, excuse me. So you help people who you would describe as, or they would self-describe as being lost, stuck, or unfulfilled in life. What is the most common reason you think that business owners or leaders end up feeling like that in life?
Good question. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it comes down to mindset.
Mm.
They're too afraid to ask for help. They don't have clarity on what they're doing because they're following a path that they think is fine or makes sense to them, but they haven't actually thought about their target audience. And personal branding even helps with mindset because when you have clarity and more focus, it's actually better for you. A lot of people don't want to, like, I often offer people, an audit of their business. For example, people join TLB Club, they get an automatic audit of their business, and then I do an hour call with them.
Mm.
You'd be surprised at the percentage of people who don't wanna do it. Why?
Mm.
Because they don't wanna be vulnerable, they don't want someone to judge them, but I'm like, "Look, I'm trying to help you." Because, and they build narratives in their head. Like one of the biggest things. Well, I'm working a full time job and I'm now making an extra 30,000 a year with my side business, but I guess that's fine. I should be grateful. Okay, but you could grow it if you want. Or you started a business and let's say you've gotten to 60,000 a year and you're like, oh, I'm happy, I'm grateful, I got a roof over my head and I guess I'm okay hitting 60,000 every year for the past 6 years. Or maybe there's more you could do to hit 100 or 120 or 150. I
Mm,
find that a lot of small business owners, they hit a ceiling and then they repeat that ceiling and they don't want to go past that or
mm,
beyond that for whatever reason. They have some sort of narrative in their head, but I'm like, look, I'm glad you're making 40, 60, 20K per year in your business. But you know what? If it happens every single year for like several years, maybe there's something that you could do better or
mm,
different to make it grow even further. And why not? Let's look at that. And most people are too afraid to even look at that or acknowledge that. And so yeah, like it's hard to explain. We spend so much of our time educating people. Like, look, ask for help, get support, do the
mm,
analysis, dive deep into your brand, dive deep into your business, get feedback. You work with coaches, work with communities, and even when they do those things, they still don't take those steps. I mean, it's hard enough to get people to dive deep. Then they have to start, and then they also have to maintain it. I'm trying to get people to even just like do the analysis
yeah.
and book a call with me. Let's talk. And they don't do it. It's kind of it's weird.
Yeah, yeah. I guess it's kind of like a version of like scarcity mindset in some ways. Like people don't want to lose what they have. They want to hold on to that as much as they possibly can, and they're afraid to grow. But yeah, I definitely see that all the time on stuff that I do as well on Substack and things like that. And just very quickly on Substack. So, how have you found being on the platform? This is obviously how we connected. We're on
Yeah.
Substack right now for the live. How have you found it?
Well, uh, I spent a long time analyzing whether to go here like over a year ago. And then I saw, you know what? After like 3 months of analysis, I have a rule, which is when three people I know, like, and trust, and I think are really, really smart people tell me to do something, I'll explore it. And
Mm,
so with Substack, that's what happened. And so I decided to explore it. And then a few months later, I was like, let's do this. Um, what I love about it is definitely the content and the community and the communication really drives us all together forward and upward together, which I think is great. The
mhm,
fact that I'm doing, for example, live stream with you or podcast with you or other live streams with other people, I think that's really great because people are really open to it. Because we and I think people see the win-win of shared storytelling, content, and experiences, insights. So I do love that. I also think Substack is. I'm telling my clients now too, like even in the TEDx clients and my TLB club small business clients, that look, Substack. Um, the first time I did a live stream, like Substack is so good at giving you tools to make it
mm,
easier to promote stuff. Like, when I do an article, it gives me an email. Hey, here's some images you can use to promote your business. Great, a promote your article. Love it. And then the one that really killed me was the first live stream. I remember I did it. Someone else had asked me to do it. Philip Hoffmacher said, "Let's do a live stream." Okay, sure. Then I did it because I was doing live streams I did multi streams through Restream. I did like LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook all at the same time. That's what I did. But
mhm,
then I did that one Substack live stream, and after it was done, it gave me 15 clips to download right away. And with a touch of one button, I shared all 15 of those clips to my YouTube Shorts, YouTube's page under Shorts.
mhm.
How much time does that save me? That's incredible. I was
Yeah.
like, that's amazing. So, yeah, I think that the I would say the number one thing about Substack is they're giving you every tool in the book and
Mm,
all the settings you need to really promote your content, collaborate with others. And that to me is something that no other platform is doing as well because they're doing it all for free too, which is
mm.
amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I love it. It's always felt like home to me as a platform, and I love all that about it. Yeah, it just seems to be constantly adding new tools and new functions all the time, and just getting better all the time. So yeah, I'm excited to see what else they do in the future. Um, let's talk about. You mentioned about story a few times, so let's talk about the kind of stories that have drawn you in on in terms of TV, in terms of movies. I love kind of this little segment of this podcast. So I always ask people what their favorites are, and you gave me a few. Immediately, I was like, this is going to be a good conversation with Bobby. We're on the same page. So one that stood out to me more than anything else, I guess, is a really, really important show to me, which is 30 Rock. I
Oh
love
yeah.
30 Rock. I've always loved it so much. Um, what draws you to it? So as a as somebody who's been part of or worked for Second City and things like that as well, and a comedy trip. What is it about 30 Rock that really got you?
Well, I think that to me, 30 Rock is probably the greatest comedy of all time. Of
Mm,
all, and look, I'm a comedian. I'm a Second City guy, so I'm really big on comedy. There's lots of them out there that I love. You know, I love Seinfeld, I love Simpsons, I love other things like that. But I would say 30 Rock was the greatest comedy I've ever seen, and mostly because they had such a yes and philosophy. Yes, let's fly. Let's just do some of the sheer inanity of what they would do, the creativity around some of the things. Like I just thought that they were just so clever. The writing was clever. The acting was hilarious. The stuff they would try to do, and at the same time creating a commentary on various things in life, I think is just really powerful. So I really love that show. I think they yeah, I think that was pretty awesome. So for me, like and going back to what I love, like the list I gave you was really diverse, right? I mean, definitely I love comedy. I do love I do love sci-fi, so Star Wars, Star Trek, Avengers, Marvel. I love that
mm,
kind of stuff. And then the other thing I liked, which I didn't really give you much of it, I tend to like very dystopian things. Like so, I do like Foundation, Silo, Last of Us. I like those types of
same,
things too.
same.
Pluribus.
So
Those are
good.
those are very interesting to me too. But those are probably the three kind of themes that I really I get excited about.
Yeah, Bobby, you and I could sit down on the couch and watch TV all night long together. I love it. Yeah, no, I mean, comedy.
Why do you like 30 Rock? You tell me.
I don't know. It came to me at a time whenever I think I was starved of just really really good comedy. I'd sort of grown up with canned laughter, sort of standard
Yeah,
sitcom and stuff, which has its place and is great too. But 30 Rock just seemed to be something so different to me at the time. It came along at that sort of like golden age of comedy, whenever things like The Office and Parks and Rec and everything that were
yeah,
kind of coming out as well,
right.
Scrubs, all that sort of thing. And something about 30 Rock just it felt like smart comedy to me. It
Yeah.
felt like there's something slightly higher brow about it, but in an accessible kind of way. And I've just always loved it. I come back to it again and again. I made my wife watch all the way through until she fell in love with it as well. So yeah, it's such a good
I
show.
wanna I
Mhm.
wanna get my kids to watch it. It's hard to get them to watch anything, but guys, this is the greatest comedy of all time. You gotta watch this thing. It's so good. Yeah, and I like the idea of the smart comedy thing because, yeah, I mean, I was watching some, I grew up, I was a child in the '70s, so I grew up there, and I remember I was watching some old sitcoms from the '70s, and they had, like, this person doing a shtick, and then there's a laugh track, and I was like, "This is not really that exciting," you know? And, Seinfeld kinda was the first inkling of smarter comedy and the way they narrated things, but then I think 30 Rock took it to that next level, which is great.
Yeah, yeah. I'm always excited whenever someone says they like 30 Rock because I feel like it doesn't get the plaudits it deserves. I feel like it's gone under the radar a little bit with some people. So
Yeah.
as soon as you said that, I was like, happy days. And one you mentioned as well, and you're gonna probably think I'm a terrible lover of movies, but I have never seen The Princess Bride before. So yeah, it's just one
What?
that it's passed me by, and I don't know how many people have told me to watch it, and for
Oh.
some reason I haven't watched it yet. But tell
Just
me what you
just
think.
just the best storytelling, right? I mean, it starts off with a grandfather and his son, and he's sick, and he's basically reading him a book,
Mm,
and so it's entirely focused on storytelling, and there's a lot of beauty and just natural authenticity with what they're talking about and where it goes, where it develops. No, it's definitely just an incredible storytelling example, but it's the greatest fairy tale and one of the best romantic movies, adventure movies of all time.
mm.
We showed it to the kids; they've seen it several times. It's excellent, excellent. So yeah, I definitely highly recommend that. And, it's fun. There's always some sort of movie or show that some of us have never seen, and so yeah, I think that if you ever get a chance, and especially if you have kids or nephews and nieces, yeah, show it to them because when they're like 10 years old, it's magical.
Yeah, yeah. I need to go back and watch it. And Mary Beth in the chat there just said "what" with loads of exclamation marks, but I haven't seen it. And Princess Bride, I think, is it's referenced so much in things as well. So I see so many shows, and they have these references to it, and often I don't really understand what exactly it means. So I need to go back and watch it. Yeah, definitely. It's gonna have to be added to
You
my
know, what's
list.
fun you know, what's funny on that topic, I just showed my kids, When Harry Met Sally, which is, again, one of the greatest romantic comedies of all time, and what's interesting is that if you look at all of Rob Reiner's movies, I'm a huge fan, but, like, his movies, Princess Bride and the one I just said, and then he had the one about the band Spinal Tap, and
Mm,
then he had the American President, and then he had the courtroom drama. And what I could tell you is that all of those movies have incredible numbers of quotes in them.
mm,
Like when Harry Met Sally, I'll have what she's having. Very, very famous quote.
mhm.
And Princess Bride, Hidden Fall, inconceivable. Like there's so many amazing quotes in those movies, and that's a signature of it. I think the Rob Reiner films, which I highly encourage everyone to watch.
Yeah, Rob Reiner had this just this run of like just banger after banger for like so
Yeah,
many years, didn't they? Just that
yeah,
made some of the best movies of all time in that period. Yeah, incredible. Mary Beth also added. We were just talking about it last night, Princess Bride. As we served as a family, my daughter is 13, and she was like, we've watched it so many times already." And Michelle says she agrees. Brilliant. So I need to go and watch Princess Bride after
yeah,
this. And a couple more questions, if
sure.
that's okay, Bobby.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, what is one thing you think if you could give someone a bit of advice about becoming a speaker, gaining confidence as a speaker? This is a big pivot, by the way. Gaining confidence as a speaker in whatever it is they do, as a business owner, as someone who goes live on Substack, going on podcasts, whatever it is they want to do. How can they boost their confidence and get themselves past that point where they're afraid to take that step?
I mean, there's lots of things. So, I mean, the first thing is just putting yourself out there, right? Because practice makes permanent. The more you
Mm,
practice, the more permanent the attitudes, habits, and skills become. So, putting yourself out there, just like my first vulnerable storytelling piece was hard at first, but then I got better at it.
mm,
So, I think doing that goes a long way. The other thing I would say is that look, you don't have to be a speaker; just be a teacher.
mm,
Like change the mindset a little bit. Like I'm just trying to teach something. So if you're teaching versus speaking, we don't have to be like Barack Obama or some sort or Tony Robbins. We're just trying to speak.
mm,
So and share knowledge as a teacher. I think that's another thing. And I think the third thing is if you really understand your audience and what they care about, and you're on a mission to just help them, then you understand that much better and you have a more genuine, thoughtful intent with what you do to go about it. And
mm,
confidence will start to build. And the big tip I'll give you about confidence is this, which is look, confidence builds, sorry, my confidence wins their confidence.
mm.
And what I mean by that is that if I talk to you about the power of pens and why they're so good and the ink is so amazing and it's such a simple thing to use, how if I say that with confidence, I can convince people. I can talk about anything. Let's say something I don't know very well, like I don't know much about cars and mechanics, right? But if I talked about it for 30 seconds with confidence, you need to get an oil change right now. Here's why. Step one, two, three. You can convince people of just about anything. So your confidence will win their confidence if you're willing to actually do it that way. So the more you practice, the more you know your target, and the more you're really clear on what you want to teach, the better you're going to be as a speaker.
That just reminded me so much. Again, going back to 30 Rock, I can't help this now. There's a part in it where Matt Damon has that period where he's like a pilot, and there's Lemon's boyfriend in it for a bit, and he talks about if he's a pilot in his uniform and he walks and he goes somewhere with confidence, he can just go wherever he wants. And he says he's like been upstairs in
Yeah,
the White House because he just walked in one day and his confidence. Oh man, sorry, just come back to that again. I can help it.
yeah.
Um, but no, that's great advice. And uh, I was going to ask as well, Bobby, in terms of speaking and putting your face upon a camera and that kind of thing. Do you think it's something that every business owner needs to do? Do they need to get comfortable with this in 2026 going forward? Is this like a non-negotiable at this point, or can people still kind of be behind the scenes and not really show themselves?
So I think I'm not sure my take will be popular or not, but let me tell you this: you don't need to do anything.
Hmm,
You can live your life however you want. Everything we do in life, though, has benefits and is an asset,
hmm,
right? So for example, a business owner, like if I'm a business owner, I could build my business without doing speaking or doing camera work and things like that. I could just I could hand leaflets. I could go to trade fairs. I could network like crazy. You could yeah, there's so many things you could do without actually having to do it. But and this is a big but, all the different assets you have, right? So the biggest asset you have is you, your voice, and putting yourself out there.
hmm,
So having a book is great. That's an asset. Having a content profile, having a website is an asset. Having a LinkedIn profile, Instagram profile, Substack profile, that's an asset. You know, you might write an article a week. Someone might write an article every 3 months. Okay, the weekly article is an asset more than the every 3 months the quarterly article. But speaking is really the biggest asset because at the end of the day, especially now, in the last 5 years, especially during the pandemic, I was teaching people to build thought leadership, which I now call authority.
Mm.
Authority is a huge thing. But now, with the advent of AI, what is happening is it's an interest based. You have to garner their interest, and that comes with trust.
Yeah.
And the best way to get people's trust is to be here like we are, talking to people and say, "Hey, this is me. This is Bobby wearing a t-shirt in his home with his bookshelf behind him." Like that's more real. This is not like it's not AI. I'm not. It's not like we're not doing it like that. This is real, and I think that is so important. So if you want to build more trust with your audience, with your business, to build the best kind of sales business funnels and marketing funnels, then yeah, I do believe that speaking is your best asset you have. You don't have to do it, but it's faster, it's easier, it's smarter, it's better.
Yeah. And I think, like you mentioned earlier, it's a muscle that you work. So the more you do it, the easier it gets as well.
Yeah.
Did you do stand up as a comedian?
No,
Yeah.
no, no. I did improv comedy, so we did sketch comedy. I did improv and things like that. So like when I was a speaker in the early days, people say, "Oh, Bobby, you're really funny." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Well, I never pitched that as my brand, but then I was like, you know what? Enough people said this. Let me just say that, yeah, I could be funny on stage. I did stand up only one time in my life. I was at my high school reunion and I was terrified, but they asked me to do it. And one of my stand up friends said, "Bobby, look, these people know you. They like you. It'll be fine. So just do
Mm,
it." But to me, the context of having to be funny, that's intimidating, which is why
yeah.
I've never done stand up.
That's fair. That's fair. No, I was asking about that because I think there's obviously a real link there in terms of confidence. Like to do stand up, to be part of an improv group, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, you have to have a certain level of confidence. Maybe that's bled through from that into what you do now as well. Um,
Yeah, I
yeah.
believe so. I mean, I think that look, my ability to do improv or even being a performer, like I did a lot of musical theater and performing. So that stuff certainly gives you confidence being on a stage. But now the difference is there's no audience. There's just a camera, but there's people behind that camera. And it's very, very similar.
Mm. Who's your favorite comedian of all time?
My favorite comedian of all time? Wow. Oh my goodness.
Mm.
That's tough.
Put you on the spot.
um yeah, I know you put me on the spot and now I'm like trying to figure it out. But right now, who am I liking? It's funny. I like Taylor Tomlinson. I like Tig Notaro. I think they're really fun. Josh Johnson's really really good these days. I'm liking what they're saying these days.
Mm.
Classic comedians back in the day. I certainly used to like Seinfeld and um, and I used to like Jim Carrey
Mm.
back in the day. But right now, there's some really good up and coming comedians that I'm watching, especially across like the channels like the Daily Show and things like that. Like I really enjoy some of those comedians there. So I'm really big into political comedians now, so I really enjoy that a lot.
Nice.
Oh, I know who I love. Hassan Minhaj, love that guy. I think he's hilarious.
Brilliant. Brilliant. I've been listening a lot recently to Amy Poehler's podcast that she's been doing.
Okay, yes, I
And
heard about that.
yeah, she's bringing on a lot of like brilliant comedians. Most of them I know, some of them I don't. But just the conversations they have around that is just fascinating to me. Like I love hearing about like what life was like growing up in that environment and working in that environment, having to go on stage and things like that. So yeah, I'm loving that podcast right now. It's so
You,
good.
you you know, I was listening to I listen the only podcast I listen to regularly is Smartless. And
Mm,
one thing that's really interesting about that one is Jason Bateman and Will Arnett in particular. They're just so naturally funny.
mm,
And Jason Bateman, I've seen my whole life growing up because he was in all these shows I watched as a kid. And I saw him on the Daily Show, and God, the banter. He's just such a naturally. He's not a comedian, he's an actor, but just the banter. I love that kind of banter. It's just so fun, and so I really
mm.
enjoy that.
Brilliant. Love it. Okay, so Bobby, what's on the horizon for you? What's your next big thing that you're going to be doing next or you're working on right now?
My next big thing, my
Mm,
goodness. Well, I mean, I think for the most part, I've been one of the things I've been blessed with uh, since I joined my own coaching program, and they really taught me about focus because I was kind of all over the place, and now I'm quite focused. Like
Mm,
Substack, I'm building specifically for small business owners. LinkedIn is specifically for building keynotes and workshops and virtual training, and then
mm,
I have my Facebook and Instagram ads that are leading people to my TEDx Mastery program. So I like that focus. I'm really building that up until July, and then I'm gonna tackle something new. But the other thing I'm really excited about is using AI. I've been kind of diving into Claude and the tools.
mm,
I went from ChatGPT 2 years ago, and now Claude, then Claude Cowork, now Claude Coding, and I'm seeing the huge benefits of it, and I'm
mm,
testing it out as I go along. So I'm kind of excited about that. And then finally, actually, the thing I'm really excited about, honestly, is my new I call it the Bobby 2.0 journey.
mm,
I did my first musical in 18 years this year. I'm started getting out to do more. I'm doing more auditions for shows. I'm starting to work. I went to work out last night because my kids are getting older. My son's leaving for college in the fall, and I'll
mm,
probably be bawling when he does that. And then my daughter has 2 more years, and so I'm trying to regain my independence because my entire life was business, and then it was the kids and my wife.
mm,
And now I'm realizing, you know what? I need to get have more community and friends outside of because this place where you see me right now, I spend a lot of time here. I need to get out there and go do stuff. So what I'm really excited about, honestly, is that uh, not only have I been able to have more focus, but I've also been able, because of the Facebook ads, because of hiring various people in my staff and offloading things on Claude, I've saved so much time in my life. I
mm,
used to work 60 hours a week like a chick with a head cut off. I now work like literally I'm working 30 hours a week because I have all this free time. My
mm.
friend calls me, Bob, you want to go play pickleball? Yeah, tomorrow. Yeah, let's do it. Like even on a weekday, I could do this. So I think that's the thing I'm most excited about.
Brilliant. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you give us, Bobby, just one final golden nugget of advice? So, but anything we talked about in the course of this chat, you want to leave someone with that they'll take away from this chat today? What would you say?
Well, I'm going to add something new, which is for business owners, right? Um, 90% of you are not monetizing your content strategy well enough, and you're not that great with sales. Because every time I ask you, tell me your sales funnel. Tell me your client acquisition strategy. And they say, oh, I put content out there. That is not a client acquisition strategy. That content is an awareness building strategy. It's a brand building strategy. What are you doing to get clients? And they have no answer. I say, you know what? Let's book a call and let's figure out how to do this better. And then they don't book a call. But
Mm,
the truth is, 90+% of you are doing those two things wrong. You're not monetizing your content well enough, and you're not doing sales good enough. So understand that, figure it out, get help, join a community. But I think that to me is really, really important.
brilliant. Bobby, thank you so much. I really appreciate this chat. It's been so much fun. And that was a great way to end it, I think, today. I look forward to continuing to connect with you on Substack and seeing what you're up to. And yeah, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thanks, David. I appreciate you letting me be here and looking forward to doing more of these.
Yeah, for sure. I'll see you real soon.
Okay, take care.
Bye bye.